There we go. All right. All right. Thank you, sir. You get an extra piece of pizza for that. Okay. Thank.
Got it.
Wow, there's a lot going on here.
We're pilots, we're not tech people.
Yeah. it's kind of
There you
going
go.
on. Going away. Okay, good. All right. Anything else? All right. My name is Stephen Ratzlaff. I'm president of the Washington Seaplane Pilots Association. I'm very glad to be here. I'm also on the board of the Seaplane Pilots Association, which is the national or international organization based in Florida. I mentioned that because we're going to talk a little bit about SPA in shortly, but we're two independent organizations, but we work very closely together. So with that, here's our agenda for today. We're finished with the pizza and hangar flying, and I'll do a brief introduction, and then we'll go on to Carl Nader's presentation about swimming in Lake Washington, which we're really glad that Carl made it. He's had a little bit of rough bout with cold, but he's here, so we're all good. Then we're going to go talk about amphib safety program we've got underway. Then we're got some destinations to go over that and talk about approaches and access and things like that that might be helpful that would apply to a rust remover safety program. And then we want to talk briefly about our summer plans, in particular the Priest Lake fly-in, and then we'll go on to questions and departure. So I like to make these kinds of sessions interactive. I think it adds a lot more when people ask questions as we go through it. So feel free to ask questions. If we start to get behind, we'll cut you off. But overall, I think we've got enough time for a few questions. So feel free to ask away. I want to make some say some thank yous. See if I get this working. Nope. There we go. Okay, so we're going to talk about our board of directors, which are the people that make this happen. But also want to thank Shane, though. Shane Carlson, where are you, Shane? Okay. Well, we'll get back to that in a minute. This is our board of directors. Don Goodman's our secretary. He helped out quite a bit with getting this going. Where's Don? There he is. Okay. Now we got Amy Fennick. She takes care of our website. She's remote. She lives in Spokane and Washington State. So she's covers Idaho and Washington. Got Jack Jacobson. He's our treasurer. Jack is back there with the membership Square device. So if you haven't updated your membership dues, please do. We found that when we don't have grounded hogs every year, we tend to not have as many membership renewals as we're used to. So please do that, because that's we cover everything, including that pizza with your donations and dues. Kevin Wyman, he covers Eastern Washington, North Idaho. He's in Idaho right now. I'm not sure if he's on the call. Those of you on the call can actually be heard if you speak up. So we've got speaker here too. And we've got this really cool 360 camera from Duff, who I'd also like to thank, who stepped in here at the last minute and really helped us out with the AV. So thanks again. Unfortunately, I learned about a new toy, $500 toy to add to my to the Beaver that shoots these 360-degree views. That's unbelievably cool. And Shane is back. So Shane Carlson, our fine host, is here. And, all right. Thanks, Shane. And then let's see who else we got. Bruce Hines is remote. He's our past president and vice president. Kevin Franklin is there. He is. Franklin. Thank you, Kevin. He's our historian for all the seaplane sites. And then Chuck Perry's from Kenmore. He's our industry rep. He's unable to make it today. Might be calling in. And then Jamie Madonna. Thank you, Jamie, for organizing everything. And he brought the pizza along with Jack.
Woo, Jamie, thank you.
All right. And then Scott Cooper is our editor-in-chief of the newsletter. So thank you, Scott, for coming too, and myself. So there you go, to everybody. That covers all that. If I left anything out, remind me. We're gonna keep rolling here. There we go. So as you probably know, we've had a few airplanes that have gone in the water in the last year or two. And Beaver and a Kodiak, recent vintage. And so we and Carl Naders, one of my good friends, a very good friend of mine, was piloting one of those. And so he's offered to come and kind of give an overview of what happened and help us all learn from that. And so Carl, come on up. And so I'm gonna.
Hey, can you plug this in?
Okay.
And there's a
There's just two titles or one title
Okay,
I'll just have up there.
okay.
Hey, thanks for having me. How many guys and women are floatplane pilots? So pretty much most everyone, given it's Washington Seaplane Pilot Association, right? I belong, I just haven't come to many meetings.
The online audience, the microphone is there, so as long as you can direct your comments in that.
To this?
Yeah, just so the online audience can hear you.
Okay, so
There you go.
stand here.
Stand there.
That's gonna be hard for me to do that. Okay, all right. Let me,
Move it up forward a little bit.
Okay, if you like.
is there a way to
Yeah, just
to
I
move
mean,
it forward?
It's tended to him, so.
Yeah, we got a long
How
time.
much room do we have?
You got a lot of room.
Yeah. So, can you see it?
Cause and.
Yeah, stand by just a second. I just want to, yeah, cause.
Yep.
So, anyway, to start off with, my whole intent is that people learn from my mistakes. So there's no misunderstanding. This is, obviously pilot error, right? But I'll talk about the factors and what happened in my case. Will it open?
You did, yes.
Okay.
You want to show the slides first or you want to?
I just want to make sure that this is up there. And then, if you want to have pictures, one way or the other. This accident, there was, two people on board, myself and my daughter. Tell you a little bit about myself, well, this accident occurred out there in front of Lashai Marina. I live just a little bit between there and I-90. And we were doing a little flying and came home and went swimming. It happened 2 years ago, as you know. A little bit about me. I started flying when I was 16 down at BFI at Seattle Flight Service. Some of you guys, there was a Piper dealer there. I was in high school washing airplanes and fueling KVI and doing that kind of thing. And they gave a discount on flights. So I learned to fly. I got my license at 17 as I was a senior in high school, and signed up for the Air Force and ended up being active duty and in the reserve. I was a crew chief on C-130s and C-141s out of McCord. Didn't fly for a while and then bought an airplane, and my first airplane was a 185 on straight floats, and then I flew that for 10 years, and then I had a Beaver, and that was on amphibs, a piston Beaver, had that 10 years, and turbine Beaver, and had that about 8 or 9 years until this happened, and I'm flying a Kodiak right now. I got about 3,000 hours. Probably 80% of it was on floats or on amphibs, because I just would park the airplane in the back of the house and go flying. That's what we did. So one of the two legs would be in the water. So I have some experience flying floats. I've been to Alaska and flew Turbine Beaver over to Oshkosh. I don't know if you know Kurt Boswell, but he helped me rebuild that airplane. We got that Turbine Beaver up there in Canada, and he rebuilt it. And we went to Oshkosh. I ended up, going to the float plane base. They said, "Do you want to enter? You want to enter in the competition?" I said, "Well, sure, I'm here, might as well." We left a day early, and I got home, and there was my trophy. I got, most outstanding float plane. So Kurt did that work. So I'm really proud of him and what we did there. So anyway, that's kind of who I am in some background.
Is this your slide?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm coming back.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't done this presentation before, so bear with me. So bring up that thing right here. So these are the factors that I've kind of looked at, and frankly, I'm you know, it's kind of what I've come up with. But after hearing my story or during the story, you know, feel free to ask me questions. You know, we're just a bunch of pilots sitting here anyway. And I'm just trying to tell you my story so you don't F up like I did, right? We all know that there's little mistakes that we've done. We've been flying, you know, got the flaps, the gear, that's something we didn't set right. Something always goes wrong. There's so many balls in the air and you get really excited about what you're doing. Just an idea about how much I've been flying before that. The previous 30 days, I was flying, I looked it up, I flew 16 hours. The previous 90 days was 46 hours. So I was flying. The previous year was 220. I'm feeling pretty current, been going out. I don't know if you guys know Long Wen, but Long and I, you know, go flying and he kind of gives me my, you know, instruction along the way. I'm a private sea, land, single engine instrument rating.
Hey, Carl, before you get too far, I
Yeah.
think maybe we should show some of the slides and the pictures and maybe the flight path so you can kind of walk through what transpired.
Yeah, I was just about ready to kind of,
Okay.
but yeah, that's, you know, it's,
Yeah, if you're ready to do that, I can show that we got some great.
let me, just before we get into this,
Okay.
just go back to that one there.
All right.
So just keep in mind, these are the factors that I believe contributed to this, right? So sleep, complacency, what was my role in the cockpit? You'll learn more about that. Unexpected events at the last minute, and then a change of landing medium right at the last minute. Okay, so let's take a look.
Maybe you don't want to relive these photos, but we can go fast.
I can do it. So you can see me sitting there on the flap and my daughter kind of sitting out the window there. And you can see the apartments and stuff back there.
Go back.
Yeah. So this is kind of the way that the story, you know, kind of unfolded. My daughter, who was going off to college, Riley, she was trying to get her pilot's license to get her hours up and was kind of working along. Well, this is July 2nd. She's hoping to get everything done before she goes to school. And she's taking lessons over here at Rainier. And supposed to go that day, guy calls or she calls there and he's sick. Can't go flying today. Hey, Dad, want to go flying? Let's go do some touch and go. So when is it that your daughter asks you to go flying, right? So I'm like, okay, let me think about this. Well, this was just after the pandemic started, right? So I'm in the real estate industry. I own apartments, and they've placed an eviction ban on all these assets, and nobody's paying rent. Nobody's overstated. A lot of people aren't paying rent. So I'm a little bit stressed about how this is all going to work out and not sleeping well. So the previous 2 nights really didn't sleep for shit. I slept 4 hours 2 nights before, 4 hours that night. And I'm like, if it were any other day, I wouldn't go flying. But I'm tired. And I got my daughter saying, let's go flying. And I don't know, you know, I've looked up online and I don't know if it's true or not, but they say that if you've had 4 hours sleep, it's as if you've had 1 or 2 or 3 bottles of beer kind of thing. You're not 100%. And your decision-making is impaired. It really is. So when I should have said no, I said, hey, let me have a half-hour nap and then let's go fly. We'll see how I feel. Just took a half-hour nap, got up. Oh, I'm good. You know, I'm totally good. I've been doing this. We just went flying yesterday, the day before that, the day before that. And so I'm just feeling like, what the hell, let's go do it. We've been in the rent a million times. You know, there's nothing different about today than the other. It's a little windy. You can kind of see it on the water there, but it's, I think it was 15, gusting to 22 straight down the runway at Renton. I just checked to make sure, you know, so when we went down there, we could, you know, pull it off. And so we fired up and get going. This particular picture, we must have stopped on the runway somewhere, the first leg, because this shows the final leg back to my house. It doesn't show the takeoff and going down. So just imagine that's there, but anyway, that's what happened. So we go down there, we enter the pattern, we're kind of going around it. We ended up doing 10 circuits, as you can see there. I'm letting her kind of manipulate controls. She's flying the airplane, but after the second go, it's still kind of a handful for her. So I make the decision that we're not gonna gear up at Renton. So we're gonna leave the gear down. So I'm still doing the gear checks, and we're doing all that. And you go to take off, positive rate, gear up. And then when we enter downwind, the way I've always kind of done things at Renton is when I'm entering downwind, I do my, trim flaps, gumps, green, water rudders, right? So you enter the downwind with south flow, obviously. And so, gear goes down just as we're entering downwind. We're, although it's already down, still playing like we're doing it, right? And we go around. She's doing a really good job, especially in the gusts, and I'm really happy, but she's sweating. And 10 circuits is a lot. So we go on our 10th run, and the controller goes, November 620 November, could you take a short approaching traffic? There's a Challenger on extended final. And just as I about say, yeah, the Challenger pipes in and he goes, Challenger XYZ, I'm inbound, and I look up and he's like way past let's see, right? And as soon as he gets off, I said, tower 620, I'm unable. That guy's too close. I see him right there. And so he goes, so 620 November, extend your downwind, I'll call your base, right? So I can, you can see the north end of Mercer Island. I can see that he's just north of the Mercer, end of Mercer Island, inbound. And so we start going out. He's still not calling our base. Well, next thing you know, I'm up there at Maiden Bower Bay, and I got it, Riley, and I said, hey, he's obviously waiting for wake turbulence. And she goes, and I said, I don't know how long he's gonna make us go out here. And she goes, oh, Dad, I'm tired. Let's just go home, right? We chopped the power. I just coast around. The water's right there. Now I'm talking to her. We'd already done our pre-landing checklist on downwind, going into downwind. And it has a gear advisory system on it, right? So gears up for water landing, gears down for runway landing, right? So those have speeds on them. And I have mine set at 82 knots. That Beaver, I fly the downwind at 80. So I go below that and it's going to tell me, so I can drop the gear, right? Thing is, I'm doing 80, doing 80, doing 80, doing 80. It doesn't come back on again because you have to go faster than that to reset it to get it to come back on again. I'm not blaming it on that. I'm just telling you what happened, right? So little gusty, I'm talking to her, walking her through. You can see the cap paws on the water, and I'm like, this one's gonna float you. Just be careful. Keep bringing the power back. Let's watch the speed. And I mean, you can feel it in your body. But what was really fascinating is that the Beaver goes slow. We're probably hitting the water about 57, 58, right? Indicated. But remember, it's 15 gusts into 22. So how much more was I getting off? So it just barely catches. And I had a split thought that if this, was like, if I could just jam that frickin' throttle forward and yanked it up. Because there's an otter, I don't know if you've seen it online, there's an otter actually sticks the landing, a twin otter in the Maldives, and he does not flip over with the gear down. You can go online and find it. We just barely go over, bring up one of those pictures that the airplane is literally just nose down. We don't have any impact at all. It's like a big pillow, right? And it was more straight than that. This is us, walking around in there and getting, oriented to get out. So the thing that you need to remember, which is really interesting about being in that cabin when it's straight up and down or slightly over, is that your carpet's hanging down, your seat cushions are hanging down, your shit's all over the place, right? And, they say, right, and I've always told my passengers this, not ever having been in an accident, the first thing you want to do is open the door and get your seatbelt off after that, because you get disoriented. The seatbelt will tell you where you are, where the door naturally, you're used to where the door is located, right? And I don't mean to go against that training, but in this instance, it was not a good idea. In fact, for a second there, we looked at each other, and I've told her this a million times, right? She's been in an airplane with me since she was born, right? Manipulated controls. She was 4 years old and heard me say a million times, if we go over, then don't undo your seatbelt, open the door first, and then you can undo your seatbelt so that you can get out. But when you have the whole of Lake Washington pushing against your door, there's no way in God's earth you're going to open that freaking door. Both of us, for a moment, tried. We're looking out the windscreen. I can see the underwater right out the windscreen. You can go out the side, and all you see is water. You can see there in the first picture, whatever. And so I said, well, don't go out the door. Look over there. The back doors are completely out in the sky, right? Are you good? Yeah, I'm good, Dad. I'm fine. Okay, well, can you get your seatbelt undone? I get our seatbelt, she gets her, I let her go up, and I go. And the back seat carpet's hanging down in front of the door handle. And where you go, you just do it by muscle memory, right? You go for that handle. Well, it's not where you think it is. It's opposite of where you think it is. And she can see it. I can't see it because of the carpet. And I said, Jesus, I can't find the frickin' door handle. And so I have those in that Beaver. You've probably seen them now. They have those new trapezoidal windows that say push here for emergency exit, right? They're mounted in that seal after that accident at the north of Salt Spring Island. Everybody died. They couldn't get out, right? So I go to push on that thing because it's supposed to go out. And it doesn't want to go out. There's no water behind it. But as hard as I could, I started punching and beating on it. I couldn't get that window to go out. I never did get it to go out. And then my daughter goes, Dad, right over there is the doorknob, right? So I reach around the carpet, grab it, and open it up. And then we climb out. We're climbing out right there, right? So we've already been, messing around for a couple minutes, right? It hasn't gone over, and it's still not going to go over. It took 10 minutes to go over. I didn't know how long it was going to take. It didn't think, is this going to go fast? Is this going to go slow? What's, going to happen? And none of that. It just took forever. And while I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, now everybody's going to see this. I should go back in there because I could see that the lights were still on. I still have power. I'm going to go in there and flip the lever and retract the gear. I just didn't know how long it was going to. Had I known it would take, I would have climbed back in there and done it. Yeah, so kind of funny. This guy ended up in the kayak. He ended up in the Cairo. I don't know, you could probably search it real quick. If you look on Cairo News, float plane in 19, they interviewed this guy. He said, oh yeah, I saved him. I'm like, no, you didn't save him. A guy in a speedboat came out and we swam over there. But what was funny, I'm sitting there on the flats, right? And my daughter's there. We don't even have our shoes wet yet. You know, it literally was when it got much further over, the guy came out in the ski boat and I was like, you know, he started to get close and I'm like worried about the airplane. Don't get it, you know, don't dent it, you know? And so we end up jumping in the water to get his help and we end up in the master craft. And then we call 911 and they're like, really? And I look back on the bank, the shore of Leschi. It was like every fire engine that didn't have anything to do in the whole freaking city from Auburn to Bothell was there. They literally had a 7-alarm call. There was no place to park and it was a sea of lights. They're just the whole bank, the whole road was flashing lights. I was like, really, what are you guys gonna do? I'm out here, come help me.
Yeah.
And they're all just standing there, they can't do jack, right? But they did call this guy thinks he saved me. After a while, the SPD comes in their boat. And these guys are really helpful. They're great. They're fantastic. They're just kind of listening to me. It's kind of windy. And I, hook it up here and here, and let's drag it over to the marina. You can see the boat there. And don't go too fast because it'll bend. I got a wing under the water, it could bend it. And he's like, okay, and I keep telling him, he's like, I got it. I'm kind of worked up a little bit, right? Yeah, don't bend it. And that's the fella right there. So I called Kurt from ACE, who's got plenty of experience doing this. He's actually really good at this. And I call him and I say, you won't believe this. He goes, I know already. So, and I said, so where do we put it? And he goes, take it over to the marina and tie it up so it doesn't touch anything at all. And tomorrow we're going to get it out. Okay, sounds good. And he doesn't even come up, but I get these guys, the boat, and you can see it getting towed there, but the wind is so strong that it keeps pulling the boat, and then the wing wants to steer the airplane. The whole airplane's trying to pull the boat. And it takes until it's dark outside for us to get it inside the marina and get it secure so it's not touching anything, and it never did hit anything. And so he says, well, I'll be there first thing in the morning with the crane. Do you want to pull up those pictures? So 8 o'clock in the morning, the crane is there and he's got the boat. So the one before that, or next one. Oh no, that's out of order. Back, keep going. These aren't, yeah, keep going.
Yeah.
Back up. There's 5. Okay, well, we'll just skip that other one. But anyway, he gets out in a rowboat and they hook up the harnesses there to get it up. And the idea is that you can barely see the crane in the top right there. That he wants to do you still have the other one? So anyway, he wants to get it up in the air, and we get it up in the air, but it takes a long time. So he goes, and as the access panels become available, he takes them off so it can let the water out, right? So keeps taking panels off. They're all coming off, and he slowly lifts it up. Takes a couple hours because he doesn't want to torque it or bend anything. Because I told him, I said, there isn't going to be any damage. It was like landing on a cotton ball. And so he said, okay, that's cool. So just, I don't know if you can get, because there were incremental pictures here, but unfortunately I didn't all make it. So he gets it up like that and, brings it over to the dock, and then they get a boat and hook it onto the back of the floats and pull the back of the floats away from the bulkhead while he's got the front end. So hanging in the air, boat on a harness is pulling the back of the airplane away. and then they start slowly lowering it to put it down on the floats. And then he gets a little skiff outboard, ties it to the float, and make sure that, you know, the floats are empty by now, and just takes it right on down the lake to Renton. They fork it out there, and then that last picture, there it is that day sitting at Ace. So you can see the props toast. There's a little bit of water damage just forward of the air intake. There's a little, it's fiberglass and it's bent up a little bit. But that's the only kind of structural damage to the airplane. Believe it or not, it was 100 hours over TBO. The insurance company is okay paying for, I ended up getting a -34. This was a -27, 0 time reman. So that part was good, if there's a good part to it, right? And then we take out the whole interior and dry it out, and it's all good. The interior is like perfect. We did all the wiring, the avionics over again, did a significant part of the plumbing over again. And I think that's it. So upgraded to LED, you know, lights. Might as well take advantage of it. I have, again, as far as insurance goes, they can total it and they pay you, or they offer you the opportunity to buy it, right? So ended up buying it for somewhere around 300 grand, I guess, and took the money, and we were able to do all the work and get it in better shape than it was. It all kind of worked out pretty good. Yeah. I ended up repainting it, new engine and new avionics, and
The gear's back up again too.
yeah, that handle, whatever that is, right?
What power setting did you have when you pressed down? It just seems like the prop got a lot more bending than I expected.
Yeah.
Were you at idle?
You know, we should have been darn near that. I can't tell you for sure. You know, I kind of tried to hit the water about 57, 58. So wherever we were there, I'm sure there was some power on. We're not going to be completely power off for sure, right? So you've got a low and a high idle on a turbine engine, and you're just so that it'll spool up faster, right?
When you towed it back with the gear down.
Yes, he did. Yep.
Any
But there wasn't any way to really get it up at that time.
any environmental people come after you after the spill?
Yeah, so you can see the boom in one of those pictures there. They put the boom out right away. And I did get a citation of maybe $500 for polluting the lake. There really wasn't much that came out. Unbelievably, they said it might have been a half gallon of fluids total, maybe, that got out. And that's because the way that, you know, the wing is underwater. The fuel, there's 2 fuel vents, and there were a couple drops coming out, right? One under each wing. But there was, I mean, you can see the picture, there's almost nothing, it's next to zero. And the FAA, the NTSB said, no, we're not coming. We're going to send the FAA. And the FAA came out and talked to everybody for a little while and left. And they didn't call it an accident. They just called it an incident, right? And there was, I used Rob Spitzer. He works for Aero, what's it called? Attorneys. Yeah, but Rod Spitzer is amazing. He handled the other one that happened just after mine on the Kodiak, and handled some gear ups on asphalt. He kind of knows how to talk to those guys. And if you ever find yourself in a situation, which I hope you don't, he's good to talk to. Because the guy flying the Kodiak called me that within 20 minutes of when he went swimming, and I said, "Yeah, Rob, this is his number." And so you know, that's kind of all that, how that happened.
Martin online is asking, what happened afterwards with the insurance and did they drop you?
Good question.
So they paid off. I actually can't remember. I have the same broker, but I can't remember if we changed. I think that we are at the same carrier. And the broker's point of view was give them a chance to make their money back. That comes to mind. Yeah.
So they raise your rates?
You know, there was no change.
Huh.
Unbelievably.
How long did it take you to the airplane flying again?
So it has not flown yet. There have been, I don't know. There's been prioritization, I guess. I'd already had an airplane. Kurt said, "Can I push it to the side?" He's been paid entirely. Can I just take it easy and do some other things? And he fixed the Kodiak, you know, long before mine. And he's a good friend of mine, so I was okay with it. And then when he got back started on it a bit ago, we ran into, oh, we need this part, and then that's not available right now. We need this part, and that's not available. So the engine, the wings are all that. The only thing that's left is there's a servo on the right wing, the autopilot, that's on back order until July or something like that. So let's see.
Does your daughter still want to fly?
You know, she went flying 3 days later, came down to Rainier and kept going with her stuff. So the one thing that I left out was what motivated me to come talk to you today. I called after this occurred. I called Jim Zool, who is American Airlines pilot. He was a Navy pilot. He was a Top Gun IP for 8 years in Nevada. And even though it was Navy, and I called him and I said, does the Air Force calling Navy for advice? I know. But that beaver you flew, I went swimming and he goes, "Oh shit, really?" And I said, "So what happens if one of your guys, your students, piles an 18 in? Does he lose his wings?" And he goes, "No, here's what we do. We get all the IPs together in the room with the pilot, and we would ask him what happened. And if our takeaway was that, it was the lineman, it was the gear, it was the boat, it was the wind, it was not my fault, right? If he didn't take complete ownership of it, then he was out. And the other guys that they would interview, they would, if the guy took ownership and was clear on it and was willing to go talk to the rest of the squadron. So he had to make a presentation to the squadron exactly what happened so that those other airmen didn't get in the same place. And if he did that successfully, then we let him fly. And that's the biggest reason why I'm here today. Aside from the fact that Steven is a good friend of mine, he asked me. But that put me over. I like.
I have one question.
Yeah, it's back.
Let's say Sarah, the reasons and everything else. Knows the old classic. I have these links that are going together. How do I break the chain? Have you identified any of them that probably would have broken the chain versus?
Yeah, trying to break the chain. How do I get the holes in the Swiss cheese not to all line up all at once, right? We've all heard that it's at least 3, right? I got more than 3 here, right? What I came up with. Let me get my glasses here. Well, there are several things to consider. One, I was too tired and shouldn't have gone. I think that, a lot of people said, hey, you locked the gear down, you left the gear down, and that's what did it. The only thing is that when we ended downwind, we put gear down. So it wouldn't have stopped that from happening, right? It was down, but we were going through the motions to make sure that it was down on downwind. The sleep may have been the factor that I didn't do one more check at the top of that arc, just after the jet passed, and my daughter says, let's go home. And we're already in a landing configuration, but just for the wrong surface. I've asked myself several times why that didn't happen. And the other thing that shows up is that I'm not an instructor. I'm not a trained instructor. I was out of my flow, right? I'm trying to talk to my daughter about how to fly floats and how to land on a gusty day on the water. And that takes me out of my regular flow routine completely. It's a gusty day, so I'm right there then flying the airplane. She's not. I've already told her, mimic me, because I'm not gonna want to, you just kind of shadow me on your controls over there, hold them lightly, you've done it before. Or maybe you haven't, maybe that's just me, right? So I'm flying the airplane and I'm talking her through why I'm doing what I'm doing, and the gears down. I've thought about, why didn't the GUMPS check get done again? And what I come up with is the training and my being tired, being taken out of what's normal, my normal flow coming from the San Juan Islands. I cut power, I can do my GUMPS check, gears up, water rudders are up, all that. And I didn't get that chance because we were doing different work than we would normally be doing. The jet coming in is an added factor at the last minute. Why, when does that happen? Not often.
Lost audio.
Speed like 75, because I think if it had been slower, I might have had a chance. But it has to go about 15 knots faster than what you've got it set at to reset. So I would have had to at some point go up to 95, 97 and then come down, which didn't happen. I think about that amphib. I don't know how many landings I've made on amphibs. A lot, thousands. Is there a way that when you're flying an airplane, you get a gust from the right or the left, you compensate with rudder and aileron, you have to, or you're going to flip over, right? Or the plane's not going to go where you want it to. The gear isn't something like that. I mean, certainly it is when you hit the water or the runway, but it's not a necessity to fly the airplane. And we all know how to fly the airplane, but could you somehow connect the gear to something that you're doing in the airplane? It's a necessity to fly it. So the best I've come up with is anytime you're gonna get those landing flaps, you're gonna use the flaps, that you have a flap gear, that they come together. If you could train yourself to do that, then that might be one thing. It's not foolproof, and it's bothered me ever since the accident. And it's like this could happen again. It could happen to anybody. It happened to Kodiak 2 weeks after me.
Carl,
Yeah.
could you have changed so one thing that I saw in your thing was you had repeatedly done what I have done a billion times, and I think every one of us flying a complex airplane with retract gear right now, because what you were flying was a retract gear airplane in the pattern. And you as an owner, like me as an owner, sit there and go, every time I cycle this gear, something inevitably is going to go wrong, right? Inevitably, we're wearing out a component we will have to replace. So here you're in the pattern, doing the pattern work. And when I'm doing pattern work, whether it's in the jet or in my little amphib, I do the same thing. I leave my gear down because it's one less cycle on the gear. And I'm sitting there going, well, one pattern that could change as an amphib guy is it's a heck of a lot cheaper to burn up that little hydraulic motor and pull those gears. So whoever asked that question, my thought for you was, well, I'm just going to cycle the gear because I got my ass chewed this year down at flight training in the jet because I was like, I'm not pulling the gear up. We're going to go around. We're going to go around the pattern. No, we want it swung every single time.
Yeah.
Well, this is stupid. You're burning up the owner's components. And so I'm just sharing that as a mindset that I've noticed, especially if we get into a small pilot general aviation guys, is we got to say, I mean, you know, my father, Alex, do not swing the gear. That cost me a part. That's, you know, so it's one of those things that I think guys as a whole, we need to accept. We're playing an expensive game. Carl just had a more expensive experience because he wasn't doing, because had you brought the gear back up, like you would have, they might have still been up, because I don't know where you put your gear down. I put mine down when I'm turning base, you know, it's when I swing them down. It just
Yeah.
depends on, or a beam landing spot, right? Is where you're taught in a retract that's landing on pavements, put them down and beam the numbers. Or 3 mile final. So I'm just sitting there going, would that have stopped it for those of you flying amphibs? You know, it's
Yeah, it's an excellent idea.
because you're.
My flow is when I enter downwind is to drop the gear.
Yep.
And I left the gear down because it was adding complexity to teaching my daughter.
Yeah.
They didn't care at all about the cost.
Yeah.
It's a good point, and they do teach that, but didn't show up for me.
Yeah, okay.
But you know, the gear would have been down definitely because as I entered downwind, we were
That's
doing the
where-
flow to drop the gear.
Yeah.
So it'd have been down.
Yeah.
It was down.
Yeah.
So, you know,
I just figured I'd ask
So-
the question, because my point of putting the gear down would be a beam landing. Whereas yours was entering downwind.
yeah,
Could be
and it could have
miles
been
difference.
and that's also a good point. It may or may not have helped. It's just that when the controller said, can you make a short approach right now?
Oh, there's a million factors. Right?
You know, we would already had the gear down and that would have been helpful,
Yeah.
right? Maybe that, depending on when he said that, if I didn't have the gear down yet, if you were to drop the gear entering base, like you're saying.
Yeah.
We never entered base,
Yeah.
so maybe
Yeah.
that's an idea that you do it on base.
Yeah.
The only thing is when you're flying floats,
You're
how
straight in.
often do you turn base?
Never.
I mean,
Yeah,
if you're just
I don't
going
have a
straight in,
solution for it.
right?
I was throwing out an idea.
But I don't mean to shut it down. I like the idea of maybe changing it to base.
Carl,
Yeah.
I could throw something out for most of us. At some point, we have a final configuration in our mind, configure the land. That is when I configure, is it a water landing or a land landing? I'm using usually 500 feet or when I'm committed to a final. Water landing, gears up, I look in my mirrors. Land landing, look in my mirrors, gears down. Not part of a GUMPS. Always the GUMPS can be a lot longer, and like you said, in a configured airport where you're always there, that's fine. But if you're out in the bush and you're gonna land on the water, thinking I'm gonna land, okay, I'm gonna put the gear down. The final check, oh shit, water landing, look at the gear, oh, I got the gear down, oh, I did something wrong. So bring water into your GUMPS. This is a water landing, this is a land landing, and do it as your final, you know, when you're, whatever you consider to be your configured point, because in some airports, some lakes, maybe full flaps early, might be full flaps at the end. You could actually change the gear at that point on some airplanes because the selector is hydraulic. And you could be putting flaps down, you're actually extending the gear as well because you put the gear in the down position. And like on my CV, and you're pumping it down. So
Yeah.
that's just another thought. Is
Mhm.
change your GUMPS to a water gear is up, check it, look at it. This is a land lag, check it. No matter where you are in the pad, it doesn't matter. Just a little.
All right.
check.
Yeah.
Well, thanks
Yeah,
for
good.
everybody's comments and questions. Most of all, thanks Carl for presenting.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
I was wondering that too. Good question. Yeah. So, but yeah, thank you so much, Carl, for presenting. I know it's not easy to rehash that whole thing but sure it's beneficial to all of us and greatly appreciate it. I have to say, once I heard kind of what happened and how you got extended in the pattern, it wasn't quite as simple as it often is. So it was definitely a complex situation with a lot of different factors. So way to go. And oh, one thing I was going to add too is Carl's got these great 3-point harnesses, 3-point or 5-point. What are those things called? I think that was a big factor too in the way you guys were able to get out of it.
Yeah, we had the inertial wheel 4-point.
4-point.
seatbelt.
Yeah, they got the 4-point seatbelts. I think that's a lot. That's quite beneficial because protects you from hitting the yoke or hitting the dash and getting knocked out. So if I'd say that's another factor that really worked in your favor.
Yeah, so I'm sure it did.
So it's a good transition because one of the things we've been working on at the Seaplane Pilots Association is some training around amphibs, and a lot of the impetus was what happened to Carl and the other amphib that went down out here in Lake Washington. And we realized there's a lot of risk of it. And I fly amphibs, so I'm keenly aware of it. And so at the Seaplane Pilots Association, we started working on a project that developed training, not just around amphibs, but a much bigger safety program. But we realized the low-hanging fruit is to work on amphibs. So last year we took some data that initially came out of the Washington Seaplane Pilots around accidents. We looked at 10 years of accident data and came up with the root causes with it. So we took that to the national group and said, let's see what we can do with this. And so we put together training, procedures and training that's going to be coming out in a video in the next few weeks. So if you're a Seaplane Pilots Association member, which I'm guessing all of you are, then you'll probably see an announcement about it. And please take a look at it. It's going to be a lot like the invasives training that Kevin worked on with Bruce, that has a test at the end, 10-question test, so you can go through it, you get a little certificate at the end. And we're really hoping that helps to reduce the number of amphib accidents that we see happening across the US and across the world, quite frankly. So in the interest of time, I'm going to keep rolling here. And I've got a couple slides I wanted to mention. So this was the accident data we came up with. The average for fatalities for a gear down water landing is 1.3. So you really want to avoid it. One of the things we came up with was, and this is not necessarily true in Carl's situation, but if the gear is raised immediately upon departure, then it would reduce the accidents by 83%. So we think that's pretty important. And what you're going to see in the training that's produced is it's all about positive rate gear up. And I would add to it, in my initial training, when I did my amphib training, I was given that same, I asked the question, I said, well, should I raise the gear since we're just staying in the pattern? And the instructor said, well, you can do whatever you want, raise it, not, it's up to you. Well, I've since kind of learned that that's probably not a good idea. I like what Bruce Hines says, you are what you practice, and or something like that. And that's really important, is to practice the way you're going to fly. So with that, we started this initiative. It was begun by the manufacturers group, the Aeroset, Icon, Sea Ray, the whole group, Kenmore and AirCam, and as well as the Washington Seaplane Pilots and the Minnesota Seaplane Pilots. So these are the rules we came up with. So this is the concept of what you'll see in the training. One, most importantly, positive rate gear up. That is fundamentally the most important thing, because as we've seen when looking at 10 years of data, most of the time is people leave their gear down, they get distracted, they don't notice it, they go into land, they get distracted again, and they forget to raise their gear. And then have a formal post-takeoff checklist. I use GUMP. The reason I use GUMP is because I don't want to look at a paper checklist, and GUMP works really well for me. And so we recommend using mnemonics, so that way you don't have to pull out a checklist. You can do it even if you're too distracted, you're too busy to pull out a checklist. So use GUMP. I do that as soon as I reduce my power into cruise. and make sure you raise the gear. At least one time I've gotten distracted by things going on at the airport and I didn't get the gear up right away, and doing a cruise check really helped me out. The next one is always check the gear indicators as you scan your panel. Don't just scan the panel and don't look at the gear. And then finally, when you're approaching for landing, either straight in or in a pattern, do gump 3 times. If you're in a, if you're in a pattern, your trigger needs to be when you start your downwind. Maybe the better trigger is when you begin base, but I kind of do it as soon as I get into the downwind. We recognize that a lot of pilots don't necessarily do a pattern, even though it's not, it's a best practice to do a pattern. But if you're doing a straight in landing, as soon as the trigger we seem to have latched onto is as soon as you reduce power to descend, do your first gump. Maybe you don't lower the gear immediately then because you're still over water, but then as you're coming in on base, if you're coming to a runway, that's a good time to lower your gear. Or not base, but the second gump. So I'm kind of mixing up the two, but the important thing that I always do is use gump 3 times, whether I'm coming over water or a runway, and whether I'm straight in or in the pattern. Anyway, those are the concepts that are in the training. I hope you find it useful. And with that, I got to remember what this slide was about.
Hey, Steve,
Yeah,
can I offer one thing to all the Amphib people here?
sure.
An old guy told me years and years ago, and I have a lot of Amphib time, he said, anytime the gear is down, be very uncomfortable.
Yep. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think that's really true. And that's a little bit different for commercial pilots or jet pilots or land pilots, because you in that case, you're always thinking I'm safe if my gear is down, and it's the exact opposite with an Amphib. We think that's gotten a few pilots in trouble. Okay, I'm not gonna drain all these slides because I think we've covered the material and you'll see it. The Amphib training that we've done, it's a 10-minute video. Please take it, let us know your feedback. We're gonna refine it probably next year. And the bigger Seaplane Pilots Association program that we've initiated is all around float plane safety. And we think there's a lot of things that are unique about float planes. There's a lot more complexities involved. You got to figure out your runway from the air. That's kind of unique. So we're now undertaking a project with the Air Safety Foundation, which is part of AOPA. We're jointly doing a project to analyze all the past data on seaplane accidents to come up with root causes, and then we'll do our Pareto chart on it and figure out in order which things we're going to work on. So this first video around Amphib safety is kind of the initial one that we're taking out of the gate. Now we're going to after that, in the next few years, we'll then carry that forward to produce training for other aspects. So essentially secondary training for float plane flying, which is something I don't think exists. So we're pretty excited about that. All right.
Excuse me,
Yes.
I must have missed it. Where do we find this video?
So you'll see an announcement from SPA,
Okay.
and probably in the next, probably 2 or 3 weeks. It's going to be in the next Water Flying magazine where we'll have got an article about it. And we still got to do the final edits and then get the test all integrated and get it ready to go. Thanks for asking. Yeah, you'll see it.
Maybe WASPA can send a link when it hits.
Great idea. Thanks, Don. Yeah, we'll send that out too. But I'm pretty proud of it. I've been working really hard on it myself and kind of leading the effort with the SPA. So if you can't tell, that's everything. Oh, and just so you know, it's under the umbrella of the Seaplane Foundation. Most of us that have been working on, including myself, kind of made individual donations to make it possible to get this first one done. So you'll probably hear about that too, because we'll be looking for some help to defray the cost on putting this together. But it's the Seaplane Foundation, which is kind of under the umbrella of the Seaplane Pilots Association, but it gives it a 501c3, so your contributions are tax deductible. That's it. Okay, so with that, we're going to go on to a couple other destinations that we often fly to, and we're going to do some quick training on what we've encountered and what we think are best practices for it. In the interest of time, we'll move quick. But the first one is on Friday Harbor and Roche Harbor, and Don's going to talk to that.
Yeah, I thought Isabel was before it. Is it coming?
It's in here. You want to do Isabel first?
I don't
Yeah.
I mean, you got this up, so.
Okay, let's do.
Isabel also?
No, well, I guess I am.
Yeah, you are.
Actually, I'm just going to introduce this, and this is just going to leave that up for a second,
Okay,
if
all
you
right.
would. Hi, Don Goodman here. I live not too far from the San Juans. I don't get over there as much as I'd like to. So really, I'm just going to introduce the subject, and then I'm going to probably ask Shane to talk a little bit specifically about about Roche and Friday Harbor because he's in there all the time. And there's other people here that are in there much more than I am. But the thing I want to say in general about the San Juans, because here this is a destination plot space for floatplanes, is there's only one public floatplane dock in the San Juans, and that is at Friday Harbor, right here. So for those of us who aren't commercial operators, that's a prime destination. The other thing you can do at Friday Harbor is you can clear customs if you're coming out of Canada. And then we're going to also talk about Roche Harbor. And actually, I want to mention that Chad Lundy put these slides together for us. Unfortunately, he was not able to attend. So we're going to talk about Roche and Friday, but there are other seaplane bases and indicated on the chart. We've got Rosario here. That's a private one associated with the resort. And I think you can get permission to go in there to pick up people. I'm not really sure. You'd have to talk to them. And then Fisherman's Bay is not charted.
That's down here, Lopez.
On Lopez,
Yeah, it's not charted, is it?
it's not charted anymore, has it, for about 5 years?
Okay, it's right in here.
Yeah,
That's historically a floatplane dock or a floatplane area, but again, it's a limited, it's not a public facility. So I just really wanted to give the overview of the situation in the San Juans. It's not super friendly, very frankly, to private operators. But let's go ahead and go through looking at, because they're great places to go to nevertheless.
I'm getting there. I'm getting there. There we go.
So I think Chad has put a number of slides in here that will be in the deck. And it's probably more appropriate to spend time looking at them individually. He's got quite a bit of detail about depending on wind direction. This is talking about Roche, and I'm just going to ask Shane to give just a really kind of top overview, if you don't mind talking about Roche, getting in and out of there.
Sure. I mean, Shane, can you come up here next to the mic so the home audience can hear you? See it close, my eyes are open.
Yeah, I mean, Chad's knows it. Everything is pretty straightforward. Obviously, there's arrows, northerly wind arrows. I guess what's the yellow? The legend.
yellow
The
is
yellow
takeoff.
taken off.
Yeah, and red is landing.
So this-
Yeah, and red is landing. Yeah, I mean, that's completely accurate. You see the circle, that's Mosquito Pass. They don't want you to do overflight. If Stephen takes the mouse up to the end of the first orange lines that lead to the arrows, that's Nelson Bay. You come in through Open Bay, approach into the harbor, follow the orange lines. Generally, the winds more the lower line if it is some sort of north wind on average, or it's generally more of a northeast wind, but the generally direction is there. You can see the yellow lines outside of the circle where they don't want you to take off in noise. And it's noise related. If you see Pearl Island, you go over to the right-hand side on the easternmost shoreline to the north, where the yellow arrow starts. They over on the other side.
Yeah.
And up, they prefer that you taxi out that far to take off, just for noise abatement procedures. So you can use very northeast tip of Pearl and the last dock on Afterglow Beach to take off. However, sometimes there's 80 million 40 to 70 footers rolling by with doing 18 to 20 knots, creating 3-foot swells. So it's not always possible to taxi out there and do that. There is another yellow line that's on the south side of Pearl that goes out. That is another location if the harbor is not full, that you can initiate a takeoff run and miss some of those swells. But I would say the depiction seems to be pretty accurate.
Okay. Thank you, Shane.
You bet.
Don't go away.
Yeah, this is South Flow now.
Oh, South Flow. Yes, I would recommend if it's south flow to go and land probably on the east side of Pearl, in between there and San Juan, unless somehow you have some sort of business that's gonna draw you over to Henry Island. There tends to be more boats cruising around the inner harbor over in that area. It's popular with a lot of crab pots too, and people pulling their pots and skiffs running around, where if you land on the east side of Pearl, come in and land that way, there tends to be less small boats traffic. You'll be off the step and you can taxi through in between San Juan and Pearl, and you'll have less boat activity, potential conflicts with boats going in and out of the harbor.
Yep. Perfect, Shane.
Yeah,
Yeah.
don't leave though. Go
Okay.
ahead and go to the next slide because it shows the dock, I think, a little bit better.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
So of course, the important thing is Kenmore owns that dock and they get a little cranky sometimes when we use it. So you can take your chances and see how busy it is, but on some days it can be kind of nuts. I sometimes will call Kenmore and ask them what time their flights are getting into Roche, and you can get a feeling for when there might be a lull that you can get in. And if you want to do that, best thing to do is call dispatch. You guys use that dock too, don't you?
We do. Our scheduled times are different than theirs. We make sure that, yeah, this works in general in the world of by getting a competition to be at the dock at the same time when you can be there at opposing times. Obviously, their dock, but other docks in the islands such as Friday Harbor, there's no priority of who has priority on the dock. We work together, and if it's their flight time and we're there, we make sure we get off the dock, and then we ask the same thing. If you show up and it's our time and you're late or early, we're here first. And if we don't have people yet, and it's even your time, then we'll leave the dock. So we work very well together because it's in everybody's best interest to help each other out. Most importantly, a lot of people like to come there and park with amphibs. That's generally the biggest rub because they can go land on the runway and park. And one thing that you have to keep in mind is the whole face of that dock is used for customs clearance. And in terms of a liability standpoint for you personally, if you have your plane there and the amateur boater comes in and he's trying to get into the dock and everybody's trying to crowd into the customs dock, if you had some sort of damage or there's been some extremely close calls. One time I was in your brother's airplane and I had to go move it all the way down the end of the dock because it was a typical boater yelling at his wife while he's spinning around with his inept skills of driving the boat, and somehow it was his wife's fault. But he got
It always is. What are you talking about?
he got mad and he backed up, and I just happened to be sitting on the bench laying over for a couple hours while they were on the boat, and this guy is backing up and someone said something to him and he's backing up and he's not thinking about where he's going or the plane. And I mean, I scrambled, moved and came down the dock, but the stern of his boat was within 10 foot of the tail. And I just happened to sit there. Sometimes I go up to Line Kill Cafe or the store, but it was just a nice evening. And I sat on the bench. And if I hadn't, there was just a freak of luck. The plane would have been significantly damaged. So,
Okay, all right, we're gonna
yep,
keep rolling.
and
Good
Steven brought
story.
it up. If you need to go there, you need to talk to Kenmore and
I looked at a summer floodplain, and we talked to the harbor master, and he said if it's a smaller floodplain, the were probably too big. They've got a little dock way back around the other side. It's actually proposed. If you talk to them, they can put you over there. We didn't go over there and try it, but he said you can put you over there and get you away from.
where's that out?
Yeah, what's that?
It's around to the right, back around the backside. It gets pretty shallow, he said.
it's
but-
it. Well,
What's the
it's
tender?
it's basically it's out in front of the it's the shallow dock
So the
that's out in
dinghy
front
dock?
of the cast.
Yeah.
No, it's out in front of the
For the cap.
it's out in front of the cabins and the pool.
Oh, yeah, oh, that
And
one.
you can
Yeah.
you can go over to that dock when the tide gets low. Your plane could dry up, but it still has plenty of water and it's just subject
Yeah.
if there's not a bunch of dinghies there.
That's a good idea.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Harbor Master said, if you talk to them, if the conditions are right, you can do that and get away from the.
And will customs come over there, Al?
No,
No.
That I doubt.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's a good idea because it's a soft bottom. So even if you did, there's what?
There's not that many dinghies on that dock
No.
generally.
That's a good one. All right, we're gonna keep rolling here.
Yep.
Wind shear possible close in at docks in south to east wind situation. Large underwater rock about 50 feet offshore of northeast corner of Pearl Island.
which, yeah, if you taxi out, here, let me
Yeah,
move
where is
your
that?
mouse, is that over here when the tide's low, you'll be seeing a lot of bottom. So if you favor the afterglow side, it gets deeper
Mhm.
and it's not until you get the super king tides at the highs and the low and around the 4th of July and you're taxiing out and you're like, whoa, it's getting shallow. So favor that side. Most of the time it's only the extreme tides and the flow points. You don't draw that much water, but it is shocking to see 4 feet of water when you're taxiing out thinking it's like 20 feet.
The seaweed beds are there too. On a south flow, whenever possible, depart climbing through open bay rather than mosquito pass for noise abatement. That means, it's not here. That means,
It means when you take the yellow lines departing, that goes into Nelson Bay, which is in between Little Henry and Big Henry, and it goes out into open bay. So where the arrow's pointing is your basic direction. The south departure, he does show one that goes from Pearl Island and goes down to the round circle noise sensitive. Is one of these things, it's a noise abatement. But when the weather dictates and it's windy, safety first, noise abatement last.
does, you don't never run into problem about going out here this direction towards
No,
Nelson?
no, and we just, most of the time, you have nothing to clear. There's a little isthmus in between the Henrys. In the air, power back to climb as soon as possible. Even like I'll bring it back to cruise, cut through there, and if I gotta climb more, I'll pick it up just to be nice to the neighbors.
Okay, perfect. Congested boat traffic often present in harbor. No kidding. Running northeast of Pearl Island toward Davidson Head. If using residential dock within the harbor, beware of wake action when tide on dock. Okay. Well, I'm moving fast here. So Friday Harbor, this is always fun. These are the flows on a north wind. You can see that just a reminder, the yellowish green here is the departures on a north wind and the red is arrival.
The lower arrow is facing east. So if it's
Yeah,
a
that
true
one.
north wind, the lower arrow that goes parallel to the Puget Sound Express ferry line wouldn't really be the way you would go in it. That's the way if you go in an east wind.
This one right here.
No,
No,
that's north.
Oh, this one. Yeah,
That
yeah, yeah.
one's east.
That's east, yeah.
Yeah, and then on the east side of Pearl, sometimes, or sometimes more times in the past few years, there's been so many boats that your natural thoughts are, how can I get out of here quicker? I'll leave the Port of Friday Harbor Marina. I'll go to the demarcation line and I'll take off. Well, that's where all the boats come in, and I kind of like to compare it around the 4th of July or the heat of the summer. Has anybody ever seen Caddyshack? And you got Rodney Dangerfield, the guy in the skiff fishing, and everything else that it is truly like that in that harbor. If you taxi down on the south shore of Brown Island, you go down into this takeoff and landing
Right
area
here?
with, yep, and you go that way, but you can actually start your takeoff run in the bay there.
So do you taxi on the
You
west
taxi
side
on
of
the
Brown?
inside, you go in between there, and then you take
Ah.
off through there. That you're gonna have a lot less boat activity, a lot less swell, and it is a lot less hectic because everybody's coming into the harbor on the north side of Brown Island.
Well, that's good advice. Yeah, I've wondered that. all
Well,
right.
I've done it for years and then finally I was like, oh my God, these waves. I'm going out of the south end of Brown Island. I'm gonna take off and land. I'm like, why haven't I done this for years? This is great down here.
So what about landing? So do you do this landing through the inside of Brown Island at all?
Yes, and I don't know, probably I'm gonna find something to point with here. I'll get the old trusty people here. Is that,
Don't poke a hole in the
no,
screen.
I'm gonna try to get over here to the side. Is that generally speaking in here, there's a ton of sailboats and a ton of anchored boats.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
It's very populated in boats, but it is protected water. When you approach in over this area called the gravel pit,
Mhm.
it's not a gravel pit anymore, but that's what it was always known as. But if you approach here and over the Jensen's Marina, you have an option to go around if you don't like it, or to get down and touch down here. But a lot of times, when you get that fair wind, and it doesn't happen that often, the wind is blowing over this island. So there's a lot of turbulent, bad air here. There's a million boats coming in here. So the best place to land is if you can come in here and land in here and get stopped before all the boat activity. You have to be in slow, ready, allow yourself a lot of room. If you don't like what you see, continue on out, circle back around, come in again.
Perfect.
Shane,
Thanks,
if the
Shane.
conditions warranted it, could you land on the north side of Brown Island?
Well, there are some days that the wind is really blowing. And it's maybe 2 days a year that you have to approach in over town, the ferry landing, and land out this way because you have clean air coming in. And that's really the only true way that you can have a good approach in there. You aren't boxed in, because what's the worst case? You don't like it, it's wide open, you go around and make another shot at it. Where in here, this is a pretty confined area. There's not a ton of boat traffic and activity through here, but there's a lot more than here. And once you're committed, because the go around options when you have 30-foot sailboats anchored up with masts 50 feet in the air, you just don't have an option as well. When you're going and you're getting back eddy winds blowing over the top, you decide to go around, and all of a sudden you're getting a bunch of downdrafts, not good clean air to climb in.
How often do you tell your pilots to do an overflight before they come in and land? Do they ever overflight?
No, because I mean, we do it so much. If you go here and you give yourself enough room, you can see what's happening. In an overflight with a ton of boat activity, an overflight is a great thing to do if you're going somewhere to check for rocks, winds, debris in the water. But boats are all moving, and what wasn't moving might be moving 20 knots. What wasn't there might have come out of the marina. So you have to deal with it. At the time you're there, your overflight might be a smart idea, but I wouldn't assume the picture you saw 2 minutes ago when we circled around is going to be the same picture that you're going to see when you get there. It's just to give yourself lots of room to take a look in and out if you don't like what you see.
So this is southwest wind, or south wind.
Yep.
Departures in yellow again, arrival is red. So this is interesting. So what's your preference?
Well, it depends, because it depends on a lot, how much wind's blowing, what's happening. Sometimes in a light southerly wind, a lot of times we leave the dock, taxi out, and it's pretty calm here. A little bit more wind here, and the wind begins to blow through here. So starting with the quarter and tailwind, you end up in a headwind and you take off. But when there's a lot of wind, this is just all cat paws on the back of here. Not a good place to take off. Strong enough wind that you need to back taxi out. There's this line here. Sometimes that's not enough, just depending on how much you're loaded.
I don't get those.
If you're thinking to taxi this far, probably need to go out there. Because the runway behind you is of no value. And as you come through here, you're getting, the terrain is raised, you're getting down air through here. So you might pop in the air here quick, go make a turn, and all of a sudden you went from climbing 400 feet a minute to descending 300 feet a minute. Keep in mind, full of sailboat mass inside there.
So tell me again, so you like to go way out here on the North Shore?
I mean, it just depends, but if you got a boat, I mean, most private guys are a couple people in the plane and whatnot. Us commercial people with 6 people in a beaver and a few bags that are the size of those over there, that I've seen people cut it short. And then you watch that it's tight. They come out and you're like, yeah, what do you think? You think you should have back taxied more? Oh, man, that was kind of hair raising. Yeah. Okay. I've been there before. When I tell you to back taxi further, back taxi further. I'm not telling it for my health, I'm telling it for your health.
Yeah. All right, that's outstanding. So if you take off through here, so you don't find trouble flying through here at 400 feet as you're trying to take off?
No, I mean, you go through there, it's in the world that we're in, the commercial world as well with Kenmore, that they would prefer if you went this way for noise abatement. It's been brought to us sometimes that we would take off more into the wind than Kenmore would. And they're like, hey, you're cutting through here. And I'm like, well, it's always safety first. I'm more than happy to do whatever you want for noise abatement, but I'm not going to take a risk on behalf of noise abatement. We'll do what we can do to make you happy, but safety is always first.
Okay. That's
And
right.
then even here, like this turnout
Yeah, tell me about
is
that.
generally not recommended because you're turning from into the wind downwind
Yeah.
and some funky air that you're best get out here, go over the gravel pit and be gone, because generally speaking, the wind's at some south or southwest component.
Mhm.
And then even there, we've had a few years ago when the wind really blew, taxi down here, sometimes it'll get more of a crosswind like this.
Mhm.
So you're going from into the wind to this major crosswind, gusty downwind. Go here, back taxi out there, and take off that way, because you can get a straighter shot. And here it's nice, clean air going through.
Wait, tell me that again. What'd you just say?
Oh, taxied out through here,
Yeah.
out through here,
Uh-huh.
and then took off this way.
No kidding. Took off right through here.
Yeah, and that's really reserved for when it's blowing.
Blowing. All right. That's outstanding. Thanks, Shane.
And then
Yeah.
if there's a southeast wind,
Yeah.
you have to cross over here, drop down over here, and land this way. But that's
Landing. Okay.
That's generally, well, it'll be that way tomorrow, and it's May, but it's generally a winter,
Huh.
winter operations, but winter hasn't ended.
That's interesting. Well, that's very good. Well, thank you, Shane. Any other questions?
Yeah, for us who are just figuring out the red, yellow part, is there any chance we can get printed copies of these, or at least a link to find these?
Yeah, we'll send it out.
That'd be great.
Yeah, and just in case you forget, the legend is right down here on the bottom.
Those are good. Yeah, thank you.
I put it there.
I have
All
a
right.
general question.
Yeah.
All these patterns are planned. You also have the lane guys laying it on the runway right next to it. How does that impact you, them and their patterns, that you're doing here?
Well, we'll clear of it. Because the runway's here, and the approach path is more along that line. And the height they are, you're never, even if you're coming in for the southeast, there's never a conflict, or at least that I've seen.
Yeah, And it's a right-hand pattern going into Friday Harbor Airport, so I haven't run into any problem either. Okay, so I know we're probably running long. I'm sure we are. We've got a few more things to cover, so feel free to take a break, get a beer, use the bathroom. It's all okay. But I think, well, I want to keep going and make sure we cover. If you got to leave, you can leave. Okay. That was Friday Harbor. Docking operations. Strong currents can be present. Large boats docked at south end can be a docking hazard. Watch your wing. And busy operations in summer months. But what I would say is that it is a public dock, so we can go there, and it's a good place to go.
It is, be mindful of where you park on the dock because there is commercial operations. The public can go fly their plane there. So bear in mind with the current that runs in there, in the wind, that there's a strong possibility, not as strong, there is a possibility if your plane's in a precarious spot and someone's trying to spin out, and there's not help in the way the current runs, that there is some liability of somebody's plane tangling with yours.
And if you're on an amphib, Friday Harbor Airport's a great place to go.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with Shane on that comment. I rarely go into Roche Harbor, and being on an amphib, and the airport's great. It's a little narrow sometimes, but that's a great place to be.
Yeah, well, and there's, I know another customer with an amphib, same thing, wind squirrely, gotta go there for, and land there in the evening or whatnot. Well, the traffic's gone, so no factor of congesting the dock.
Yeah. All right. So Friday Harbor, use caution during summer months, heavy boat traffic, be aware of ferry lanes and perform water operations. Talked about that. Perform outside takeoff outside the harbor if you can for noise abatement. Be mindful of current running parallel to the dock. We talked about that. Friday Harbor dock is public use. We talked about that. I think we covered it. Any other questions before we move on from Friday and Roche?
Yeah, and the Friday Harbor dock, it doesn't necessarily run parallel. It runs into the dock at about a 30-degree angle.
Does?
Yep. So when the tide's running in, it runs in. So you think you're coming in, making a turn, and you're gonna be parallel to the dock. You're gonna be coming in hard. It'll take you into the dock when the tide's running, and you're coming like this, so it'll suck you in hard. So just caution, because some people, I've seen it a couple times where they're approaching the dock, they get behind it, the plane ends up broadside the float into the corner of the dock. Thousands of dollars worth of dents and damage.
Good to know.
So Shane, you guys like it for us to always be on the south regardless? of
No,
the
you
wind
just
flow?
have to think of the wind.
Yeah,
If it's a north wind, be here. If it's, sometimes if it's, you can be up here if it's a north wind. You could be down here. There, you can do both. When it's a south wind, you need to be up here because people just are gonna have to come in right side
Yeah.
too. And that's all there is to it. That's the only safe way to approach it.
I always
But be
tend to put
mindful of-
myself on the side, you know, either north or south based upon the wind.
Yeah.
To make it easy for the other airplanes. to
Well,
come in.
but that's where I was talking, like the current runs like this. If it's running hard this way and you got your plane there, that's not good for your plane and it's not good for the guy trying to leave behind you, because as he's trying to spin his plane out, he's being pushed into your plane because there's generally not enough wind.
Yeah.
The current, I mean, it's rare that there's that much wind. It's very light. If anything, the wind's going in the other direction. If you're here, everybody parks here. As soon as they push off, they're going that way and you're behind them.
So it's better to be on the south end during a north wind.
Generally
Yeah.
speaking.
So always then, better to be
Yeah,
on
and
the south side.
it's just trying to figure out what the tide's doing, and obviously the tide changes if you're there for a long time, but.
All right, Friday Harbor, additional information. There's some numbers. It'll be in the presentation. You can look it up. And no fuel available. So there you go. Looks like you can bring it down in fuel cans in the Friday Harbor Airport. I didn't know I could do that. There you
We
go.
got an amp, just go right up the airport.
Exactly. Summer planning.
We must have missed us about, why don't you go, let's do it.
There it
let's
is,
do
right there.
this. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, we'll come back.
Oh, okay.
Because that one's about the kind of, that's the wrap up slide. So
Okay.
we'll do it. We'll come back to that.
Okay,
So we're gonna talk about Lake Isabel. Everyone, who here has been to Lake Isabel? Who's not been to Lake Isabel? That's funny. That's good. It's a splendid location, but tricky. We've had a couple accidents there over the years, maybe more than a couple. And so something to pay attention to. Don's got the infamous recognition of being the man responsible for the privy out there. So you want to talk?
well, yeah, what I'd like to do is just introduce Isabel, and Stephen he said, and it was mentioned that this is actually one of the few really alpine lakes that we have access to. So it's a special place. It's at 2,800 MSL, so we can get the altitude issues there. It's we have some other pictures, but I'm just going to give you an overview, and then Duffel's going to speak for a minute, and he's got some great film on getting in there. But it's 7,000 feet long, and it's basically one way in and one way out. Here's this is a great beaching area. There's really only one primary beaching area, and you can just go through these and we can speak to this. This was we cooperated with the Forest Service, and they supplied the toilet, and we supplied the labor to put it in.
Is that one of our people? Or is that a convict?
That's the guy from the convict crew that was up there. Go ahead.
Hey, by the way, I didn't say it before, but I do want to thank again Chad who put those slides together for Friday Harbor and Roche. I know we hit him on the front end, but he couldn't be here today. He had to fly, but did a great job with that. Okay, so this is building the privy.
Yeah.
I hope you guys haven't started using it yet.
He's just doing it right now.
Too much information, Don.
Okay.
Look at that.
All right.
Nice.
We go up annually and make sure that the toilet paper is well stocked and everything's under control. So
Where's the toilet paper
still
anyway?
working out well.
Where's the toilet paper?
Right in the toilet.
Is it? No, where is it?
Oh, it's in a can right next to it. I'm
It's
sorry.
usually in a box about right there.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good to know.
You might tell the story, Don, if that's really an urn.
Yeah, that is an urn.
What?
Yeah, the toilet paper container is an urn of a very good friend of mine who had such a great sense of humor after we distributed his ashes. And he would just absolutely love that he's now a toilet paper holder.
That's great.
Yeah.
So they're relaxing at the end.
Yeah.
So
I might mention that 4 years ago, the High Lake fishermen here in the Seattle area contacted us. They're the guys that backpack fish into mountain lakes. They contacted us and asked us if we would transport Mount Whitney rainbow trout up to Lake Isabel. So Don and me and the one other guy carried 4,000 fish up there.
did you have to start at Mount Whitney? Did
We
you,
started Mount Whitney. And so we did plant those fish in there. I fished several times in Lake Isabel and never caught fish. So I think most of them probably got eaten. And they've now contacted us again this year and they'd like us to do it in June again. Great.
awesome.
There you go.
But yeah, just a little, again, overview of, this is the lake. It runs basically northwest, southeast. And the beaching that you saw is right here. The toilet's just up here on a trail that we built to it. And I think I'd like to turn this over to Duffel. He's got some really interesting video, and then Stephen's going to talk about
Did I do that again?
some other things.
You would have to go to the YouTube channel.
Okay, all right, I'll do that. So this is, that's one view. This is another view. We're gonna kind of talk about it. For those that have been in there, you probably know this. This is the route I typically take. You come out through the valley here. Of course, I've overflown it first, but I skipped that part. And then come across the low part, which is actually probably right here. Then you can come out into the valley and land in the lake. But Duff's he used this camera, which is the most amazing camera. It gives you 360-degree view off of your airplane. He mounts it to the sponson on his lake. And he's got these amazing videos that I just saw today. So I'm so psyched about it. I've already put it in my Amazon cart to watch those things. So let's see if I can find it now, though. That wasn't it. There, is that it? No. Hold on. YouTube. Come on. Yeah, that's a great idea. Which one is it? This first one? No,
Those are ads.
those are ads. All right, here we go. It's nice to have somebody to explain YouTube to me here. All right.
Come on. Here we go.
Make money when you click into these. Look at these.
I'm just trying to orient everybody where they are. We were debating on the way here, different people have different ways of going into the lake. I tend to tell us that anytime we approach a ridge, I do it. So that's why I say right kind of here. This ridge that you see here, that's the end of it. As soon as you crest that, you're at full idle going down into the lake. If I have an engine out, I've got all this valley here to bail out to, and I think it'd be better to have somebody find me in the valley than to hike up here to find me. So that's why that's kind of my logic in doing it. Once I know we were talking beside the bowl and turning right again, as soon as I crest the bridge here, which is I think at about 4,700 feet, then you're at full idle, slipping everything you can to slow the aircraft down to get into the lake. Again, you still have all these bailout points if you have an engine out before you get there. Let's see. Again, very trying to continually raise doing this. We're eating up a lot of bandwidth as far. See if I can let it buffer a little bit and get clear. I know some people, personally, what I use, I call it the goalpost, the two trees at the end of the river here, that tells me if I'm high or not. Usually bad winds coming in the cut, which is the far end. I refer to it as the bowl in the cut. So I prefer to come down the bowl. Usually the winds coming in through the cut, so you're always a headwinds when you take off at the end of the day. You got a headwind. Just you have to watch out for the wind coming up that valley to that cut and curling around there, which was when we were up there one day and somebody went way long down at the end. We were nervous because not only were they running out of water, but the air's kind of slamming them down onto the water. So it's something to watch out for. And if you watch this on your own devices, it's crystal. What else? The good thing to do is, do you still have the lake up? There it is.
Go to the next slide.
Well,
Okay.
that was me coming down through the cut here. The beaches here, there's other places to kind of go. There's sort of a soft beach here. It's kind of mushy, it's kind of marshy, but you can dock there pretty easy. Most people go to the waterfall down at the end. As the season gets longer and the water level gets lower, it's gonna be trickier to get in there. Just all the dead logs, all the dead debris down there. I mean, always the first rule of float planes: never approach anything faster than you want to hit it. So you could tiptoe in there, and even if you stand, it's only knee deep. But there's some logs there that you can tie up to, and then there's two waterfalls. This waterfall is very close. It's probably 20 yards from where you dock the aircraft, and there's the bigger ones over here. I've never gone to it. It's on a mission on my mission this week, or when it thaws out. I think currently it's still frozen over. Last I saw about 2 weeks ago. But as he has in his slide here, that's pretty much the course. I come in high, I do an orbit looking for a FOD orbit, and then jump back outside the bowl and then come in and land basically that course. Exit the same way. It's always fun to, when you exit the cut, to kind of dive down, and because this is kind of the Grand Canyon thing that people do, and when you go over a precipice, you can dive down. It's kind of fun, pick up all your speed. Also, Wallace Falls is also right here on the corner. So I typically, people have never been to Isabel, and I'm taking them as soon as I I exit the cut, I do a hard right and show them Wallace Falls over here, which is just for people who like to see waterfalls.
So if you didn't pick up anything today, that's the pro tip, is the waterfalls there. I did not know about that.
Yeah. And most of the campsites, anybody that, if you're gonna see public, the public trail from the road dead ends right here at this waterfall. There's, let's see, if there's 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 campsites up there. The canoes, there's 2 public standard green canoes and 1 kayak that also, they live at the waterfall up on the hill, kind of on the other side of the drainage there. They're typically kept, like if you come from the water, you're not going to see them, but if you walk up the hill, there's these 2 giant logs sticking out of the ground, and they put all the life rafts and, or I'm sorry, the life vest and paddles and everything are up there.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Because the only way to get to this beach from anyone there, they've gotten a canoe from this end once they've hiked up, and they had to canoe all the way over to the beach to get there.
That's why.
So,
All right, Duff, that was fantastic.
I don't know if that
We
helps.
could, no, that's
Yeah,
fantastic.
I'll be here all night.
We could probably spend an hour on Lake Isabel or more. I'm gonna say one thing, and then we're gonna wrap up here pretty quick. I went in there late this last year in the fall. It was getting cold in the evening. It was right around the end of the day, and I had a rudder cable problem, and I had to fix it. And I learned a lot about survival gear. I thought, it's late summer in Seattle. What do I have to worry about? I got there. I wasn't sure we were gonna get out that night, and it would have been a cold night. And I had my Garmin InReach, so I could have texted somebody, but had I done that, by the time they would have got there, it would have been dark. So if I couldn't fix the plane, I was stuck there, and with my son. And so we thought long and hard about survival gear. Even that, how far are you? You're 20 miles from Seattle, barely, maybe 30. So it's hard to believe. But the one thing that saved my life was a pair of vice grips, because with that thing I could clamp it, and I fixed the rudder, what do you call it, the pulley, and was able to get it out of there. But it was kind of a little bit of a wake up call. But I started this, I thought if we had extra time, we'd do a little fun game to see if you can think of anything I left off, but we'll save that for the next rest remover. That's why I like the Garmin InReach. But even with that, I could call or text, but it was already almost dark, so nobody's going to come in then.
Do you got a way to make fire in there? 3 different ways to make fire?
I got a lot of fuel.
You better have waterproof patches and a lighter and something else. 3 different ways.
Yeah, see, I don't think, we've got a little bit of stuff in there. I got 1 sleeping bag, but that's about it. And so anyway, so that was kind of a little bit of a wake up call. We could spend hours on that too. Ross Lake, how many people have been to Ross Lake? Okay, it's one of the greatest areas we've got. It's another kind of a high alpine lake, maybe a moderate alpine lake. Great place to go. I got involved with Washington Seaplane Pilots when we saved our access to that lake. It's really important we keep using it. And it's just such a great place to go. It's got camping, it's got docks, it's got at least 12 campsites, and lots of good material for it. And feel free to leave if you want to. These are some pictures. I'm gonna show my family slides now, our camping trip. That's the Ross Lake Resort. There'll be a link in the materials we're gonna send for a guide we developed on going to Ross Lake. Please let us know when you go, because we want to document that we continued to go. So when the National Park Service does their big plan the next time, and they say, oh, you guys don't really use it, you don't need access to the lake, we want to be able to show them that it's regularly used. And it's such a big lake, if we don't tell them, they don't know it. It's really amazing. Okay, so that's Ross Lake. I'm not going to talk about that. The only other thing we want to talk about was our fly-in to Priest Lake. We've got a fly-in coming up. And it's what we've done a few years past. I think we've done it 3 times, thanks to the Phoenix who host us there. They've got a great home on the water with a ramp and a hangar.
You were there.
I was there. Thank you. There we go. They've got a ramp and a hangar and an airport right nearby, and it's the most amazing place you could go to. And we go there on a Friday. We do a fly out once we're there to the beach at the north end of the lake. Have a great time there. It's this huge sandy beach, and we can get 30 or 40 planes on the beach. And I know John's been there with this, with your bus.
Yeah.
And we've had a great time. So we're going there again this year. We're doing it earlier this year so we don't get smoked out. We've got, again, it's June 10th through 12th. And we're going to serve dinner Friday and Saturday, lunch on Saturday and breakfast Saturday and Sunday. You sign up on our website. Our speaker this year is going to be Dick Rutan. If any of you remember Dick, he flew around the world in the Voyager, and he's going to tell us about that.
And can I tell you what the title of the speech is? Human Factors on Extremely Long-Range Flights, or How to Spend 9 Days in a Phone Booth with Someone You Didn't Like. That's the title of the speech.
So that's going to be great. We're looking forward to that. And we're going to talk a little bit about getting there, procedures and such. And Kevin Franklin, if he's still there, he is. Okay. So you want to give it 5 minutes and then we'll wrap up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there fuel there?
That's a good question.
Negative. Standpoint.
We brought fuel one time. We got a fuel truck, but so few people used it that we had a ton of fuel left over and we didn't really use it. So if you need it, best to cart it in or go to Sandpoint. Yeah. Okay.
Okay,
Go
here we
for
go.
it. Yeah.
All right.
Oh, there you go.
Is there a mouse, Steve? Oh, here it is. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
We've
Kevin
been-
Franklin.
Hi, yeah, we've been here for a while, so I'm going to try to go kind of fast. But they asked me to put some notes together about cool places to fly, and I got assigned Priest Lake, which I fly back and forth to a lot, and also Lake Union. So I'm going to go through it here. But before I do, these are my 2 planes. One of them is a Skywagon, and the other one is Black Betty, which is right out here and is taken really, really good care of by Northwest Seaplanes. It's called Black Betty because it's a black beaver, and Shane named it. And every time we fly it, we play Ram Jam Blam Lamb. So kind of have to get that in your head.
Actually, I was just trying to fire it up on my phone.
Oh yeah, and I also get to hear it when I'm flying around, and Shane will sing it to me on 122.9. So it's really fun every time I'm up in the air. But they're both on straight floats. So everything I talk about is going to be specifically for straight floats. We talked a lot about amphibs today, and I know you can all go to airports, but this is all for straight floats, water flying. So before I get started on the 2 destinations, I wanted to mention Steve told me all about Ross Lake, and I went twice last year, and I had an absolutely wonderful time. I really do recommend going. It really is an amazing spot to go. This one is early in the season on Cat Island. Like you have the whole like North Cascades to yourself because the canoers and the boaters aren't even there yet. And then we did a big camping trip with a bunch of us. I actually got engaged there, so it was a really good trip, and I totally recommend going. Oh yeah, that was the story. That's the story for another time. I buried some treasure on the island. Anyway, okay, so I got 2 parts. Docking at Lake Union. I'm not going to talk about how to fly there because I assume most people know where Lake Union is. I did my initial training at Seattle Seaplanes, so I got all the procedures to fly from Mr. Chrysler. And then, we all have our other ways of getting there, but this is about docking. So you can't dock like that anymore. That would be cool, but there's only about 7 total docks that I've found, and they're not all public. A lot of them belong to different people. So the 2 docks I'm going to talk about are the ones you actually can go to. So one of them's on the north end and one of them's on the south end, and they're both open for private seaplanes. Okay, let's see here. Just gonna load. Okay, so there's music playing. I got a call one day, and they were like, "Is this Kevin?" And I said, "Yeah." "Are you the guy who keeps flying to our restaurant?" I said, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Oh crap, they're gonna tell me to stop flying to the restaurant." But instead, they said, "Hey, we need you to come be on our TV show." So this is a TV show called Food Paradise, and there I am, getting out of my plane and going for lunch. And it's amazing because you can get from here to there in about 20 minutes or 10 minutes, and you can get awesome salmon, and it kind of, you get people from out of town. It's like the total Northwest experience. Jump in a seaplane and go over to Lake Union. So I'll see if I can. So this is the picture from inside, and you can see the dock right up there. And it's just some happy passengers. I don't know if anyone knows James Finson and Marcus and my fiance. And that's just a perfect day, just flying over there. And it's also great for the winter time, because a lot of places we talk about going are all summertime destinations. I don't think Lake Union is a summertime destination at all. I think it's a wintertime destination. It's awesome to go to in the winter. It's easy to get to. You don't need super high ceilings, and it's empty.
So cool things about it, you get to taxi through the city. You can point out where the Sleepless in Seattle house is and do your little tour. It's fresh water, really close, and then there's lots of restaurant options.
Where are you?
Where is this? That's Ivers. So yeah, that's the North Dock. Yeah, I love being interrupted because I normally don't make any sense. So yeah, just keep, yeah, North Dock. Okay. So North Dock is, I think I've got this laid out. We'll talk about that one first. That's Ivers. And then I'm going to talk about the South Dock, which is a little trickier. It's a little like higher on the difficulty level. So wait, South Dock. Okay, we're starting with South Dock. So this is the South one. So it's tight, and I put this picture to show how tight it is. So if you're not really comfortable, with the 1 meg and slow docking, don't go there. But it's very easy to get, and once you do it once or twice, you're going to be awesome at it, I hope. So you'll notice this is a calm day, and there aren't a lot of boats. That's the best time to go. You don't want to go when there's a bajillion people there. You want to go when it's calm and it's easy to dock. So I put a big check mark. Use it on a calm day. This is it, and you can see where the spot is. I like to go in front of that ladder, and here it is again from the water. And I don't know if you guys have tried. Oh, you guys, I'm going to show you guys something cool. Hold on. This is awesome. You're going to go to Google Maps. You're going to learn how to maps.google.com. Everyone knows how to use this. And you go to Lake Union, and hopefully the little guy appears. You guys know who I'm talking about? That little guy. Yeah, there he is. Okay. So we're gonna go to the south end of the lake and get down to the south end of the lake.
Use the mouse if you want.
Oh, thanks for the mouse. Oh, that makes things even easier. And then you drag this little guy and look at that little weird teal line. Okay. What is that? So everyone see what I'm doing here?
Yeah.
You drop the guy on the teal line and he goes into a Google boat,
No.
and you can actually explore the lake like this. Yeah, and you can say, I want to go in, this direction, and then we can kind of come up to the dock. So those pictures I showed you were actually just taken. I like to do it ahead of, even if I'm going somewhere, I know where I'm going before, you can use that and get in the mindset of, oh, look, there's my dock, South Dock right there. Okay, there it is coming up. And kind of like, people say chair flying, but it's like more like computer docking. Yeah, and there it is. There's our dock. Super easy, right? Anyway, we'll go back to the boring presentation. So
There's another dock near there too.
I know. We're talking about the 2 docks. Keep it simple. My presentation, Duffel. Okay. So there it is again.
Supposed to go away for condos because they closed Chandler, and I thought Duke next to be closed, putting condos.
The dock is still there.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, we can all talk about what they might destroy. But if they do, I'll come back with another presentation with new docks, but this is still there. So anyway, it's really tight. That's what I wanted to show you guys. But it is really cool. And you usually want to come this arrival route and go out that way. If it's a really strong wind, you're going to have trouble tailing it out because the wind's coming all the way from the north. So, you want to, like I said, try for a calm day and watch the wind because you're going for food. So you got to look at the window. Is it going to pick up, and start thinking about that. Restaurants, there's lots. There's like probably 4 or 5. I've tried them all. Duke's is the best. We can argue about that, but Duke's is the best one by far. You can also go to the Mohai, and then there's also the Wooden Boat Center. And if you go in there and give them like $1, they'll give you free coffee, which is kind of cool. So yeah, that's okay. But now we have red exclamation points. The South Dock is difficult. It's hard to launch if it's windy. It's a tight fit. It's not as hard as Polsbo, if you ever gone there, but it's not super easy. And there's sometimes boats that you need to shoo out of the way. Also, oh yeah, they closed the Hooters. This is a huge problem. I'm very upset about this, but they closed the Hooters. If anyone, I'm sure somebody remembers it. This is a chart that shows why I'm leaving Washington someday. There's 49 Hooters in Florida to 0 in Washington. Yeah. Wanted to make that clear. Yeah. Okay, now on to the North Dock. So here it is from space. You kind of like looking at the end now. There's not much to it. It's a pretty simple dock. And if you go in the wintertime, like I told you to, there's not very many boats or other things you have to deal with. So it's pretty good to go. So Mark McLean, who Brad friends with, his plane's right behind me. It was kind of a cool day. I flew over there and just said, hey, come, there's extra space in the dock. And you could probably get 3 or 4 planes on the dock if you really wanted to. So we could do a mini flyout and eat lots of salmon. But it's got a beautiful view of the city, plenty of space. I would suggest bringing fenders because it is a little tall of a dock. So I definitely would bring fenders. And then on the very tip where those annoying like poop machines, ducks are hanging out, there's this like tiny little like bolt. So try not to hit exactly the end, but it's overall, it's an awesome dock. You just got to use some fenders. There's another picture of the plane leaving. It's very picturesque and photo worthy. Okay, so Lake Union. It is fun to go to, but like I said, it's small. It's not a massively large lake. There is summertime traffic and they close Hooters, so there are some negatives. One other thing is if your passengers are hungry, they might be a little large. So you got to think about it. It's a hot day. Like, can I really get out of this lake? Especially with boat traffic and things like that. So I like to go in there a little light just to be extra safe. And then you don't want to get get-there-itis because these docks can fill up. So I like to take people there as like they're unexpected. Hey, we're going to a restaurant rather than we're going to eat and then they don't eat and then you have more pressure to go get them food, which is annoying. So anyway, so things to consider. Am I familiar with it? Lots of the seaplane trainers will kind of talk about the approaches. I didn't want to get into that in this presentation. I just want to talk about the docks. Is it worth messing with the water traffic? Like I said, in the summertime, it isn't. And how hot is it? And are my passengers hungry? These are the things you have to avoid on Lake Union in the summertime. This isn't everything. It's not an exhaustive list. It's just some things I found. Floating lemonade stand. Like, this thing is not getting out of your way. It's annoying. Donut boats, right? The ducks are gone and they replaced them with donuts. So that is also annoying. Kayaks. I don't know if anyone has had to deal with kayaks, but they're usually busy taking pictures of themselves and they don't get out of the way of us. So they're very annoying. Kayakers are also on the lake. They go along with the kayaks. Stand-up paddle boarders. And can't even tell me you started on these guys. So electric boats are also on the lake. They don't move very quickly. They're always just taking pictures of planes. So it makes it a little bit more difficult to find a lane. I'm just trying to remind everybody, you don't really need to go there in the summer. There's amazing lakes like Cushman and Ross Lake and Priest Lake, which I'll talk about. So if it's a summer day, I would just avoid Lake Union altogether. But they also have wood-fired hot tub boats. There's a real picture from Lake Union. They don't move very fast either. More hot tub boats. There's like 4 different types of hot tub boats. Anyway, so we're done with that. Any questions on Lake Union?
The Tuesday Duck Dodge at 4 o'clock or 4 or 5 o'clock on Tuesdays, every in the summer, the entire lake fills with sailboats. In fact, Seattle Seaplanes and Kenmore do not operate on Tuesdays because of all the sailboats.
Yeah, you want to go like successful destinations, but the winter time, it's amazing. Like January in Lake Union is one of my favorite times and places to go anywhere. So I think it's just an awesome place. I take all my out of town business guests and family members, and we always have a good time there. So this next one is on Priest Lake. And this picture is actually taken at Priest Lake. It was taken by a friend of mine as a mechanic for Northwest Seaplanes, Brian Davis. He's an amazing beaver mechanic. I didn't take it because I was asleep. This was at like 5 in the morning or something like that. But it's a beautiful time and a wonderful place to go. And so we're going to host our fly-in on the 10th as well, which Stephen already talked about.
And we're going to annex the lake and move it to Washington.
That would be great. So if you punch into ForeFlight, this is like a typical route to Priest Lake. I've done it about 50 times. And you can absolutely go different ways. You can go north, you can go through Chelan, you can go around, you can go over the mountains. I would not recommend going south because if you're in a single engine plane, you're flying just way too much time over terrain that you don't want to land in. But I kind of call this the Stampede Pass route, and I'll go into some logic about how I put it together. This is actually the flight plan I did for my commercial seaplane check ride. I talked Fred all the way through how I did this. And the biggest thing I did was look at it not based off of airports, but based off of water. And you can kind of go and search for maps and map filters online. There's this thing called Snazzy Maps. And if you have some experience customizing things, you can zoom in and you can find water everywhere. And if you start thinking about the route like this, you can start thinking about your diversions the whole time. which I think makes straight float flying like way easier if you're always thinking about where can I land. And if you look down, where do I land? Where do I go? What happens if my engine goes out? And coming up with a good plan of all your backup lakes is super important. So on the flight from Renton to Delta 28, there's all these large enough lakes to land in. And I didn't want to kind of give away all the homework and give you like a whole map, but if you kind of look it up and you can kind of make a plan, you'll be able to find out all your diversion points. And they're all large enough to land in. And then there's also tons of fields as soon as you get kind of past Ellensburg. So that's why I think it's a pretty safe flight. Stampede Pass is, in my experience, the most reliable weather-wise. It's because you can get through the pass at a lower altitude if it's there's kind of clouds that are coming down. But yeah, again, we can argue about that all night over beers. So water waypoints, again, like I talked through, you've got a whole bunch that you can kind of plan around. And I try to do about 7,500 feet is my altitude I choose when I'm going east. That way I'm always within glide distance of either a field or some nice water. Especially if you've got those 3 lakes through the mountains and Stampede Pass, Cochise, and just a really easy spot to go if you need to. So let's talk about the fun stuff. When you're at Priest Lake, these are just 4 places. There's also Upper Priest Lake, but you've got Elkins Resort, Hills Resort, Tanglefoot, which is also beside a restaurant called Kavanaugh's, and then Bishop's Marina, where you can get boat gas or ethanol-free fuel if you need it. Priest Lake has this is at Tanglefoot. We have a float truck that I actually worked on with Northwest Seaplanes to kind of get fixed up. And it used to be an old Sound Flight float truck. Probably many people in the room even drove this thing years ago. But that's at Priest Lake now. So if you need help getting out of the water, or you're stranded or something, where we can get you out of the water. We do have fuel too. That's our what would you call that? Farm vehicle. So Elkins Resort is my favorite for food. It's just about halfway up the lake. It was the more northern one. It's got this beautiful beach here that you can land. And as long as you're in the midsummer months, anything that kind of like to the left of those chairs is really easy. Anything to the right, you have a little bit of a sandbar to deal with. But normally my favorite spot is just go right up to that tree so everyone can see me. And as long as I'm not in September, I can go straight at that tree and I know that I'm going to tie up to it. I just jump out, spin the plane, and then tie up to the tree and then go in for lunch. I've actually gone there one week. I think I went 7 days in a row. So I've gone there quite a bit. But if you're afraid of the tree or the sandbar, we did have a goose get stuck on that sandbar one time. It was a fun afternoon. Then you can go to the left a little bit, and if you're not, you're clear. It's super easy to go. It's like people, they kind of like scatter all over. So you just kind of like aim away from them, and that makes it easy. So Hills Resort, this one has a little bit less of beach. It's not as easy to get into. The food is arguably worse, but it is also good for variety purposes. And if you bring something, you can also get up to Millie's if you go. That's a whole different thing. Okay, so this is the beach that you go at. You kind of have to cut between those like boat parking stalls and the left and the right boats, and you will see people in the water there. So what I like to do is I'll kind of circle in this area down here, and I'll make like 2 or 3 circles just to kind of know that I'm coming. And then if people don't move, I leave. It's that simple. But if they move, then I go in and eat. But you always got another place to go. And the trick to these places is you never like commit to eating. You got to like say, well, I'm going to fly around, and if I get to eat, that's cool. That way you don't run into any trouble. But once you get to the beach, it's pretty good. Okay, so getting home safely. You're probably going to leave Renton with full fuel and go east, and then you'll be at Priest Lake, and you won't have enough gas to get all the way back. So you have a couple options. My 180, this is all talking mostly from the experience of my 180, which has the smaller non-long range tanks. I do keep emergency fuel in the floats with some jerry cans, but typically you need to fuel up on the way back. So we do have some fuel at Priest Lake, but you can also get it from Spokane Phelps Field. If you can take boat gas, ethanol free, you can, it's actually pretty easy at Bishop's Marina. Or you bring in your floats and fill up after the fly-in. And I'm gonna talk a little bit about how I think about this. So this is how I fly home to Seattle in my head, and you guys can do it differently, but this is what I do. I basically plan a flight to Moses Lake. I plan a flight to Stampede Pass, and then I go back to Moses Lake. That's my whole flight plan. That's what I start my thinking about. So I've got as much fuel as I have to do this and more on my reserve, right? And then I'll explain why. I want to know that I can get to Moses Lake without having to think about it, because Moses Lake is where I get gas and repairs and anything that go wrong with my plane, I can get in Moses without having to worry about crossing the Cascade Mountain Range. So what I do is I kind of fly over to Stampede, I look at the mountains, and if it looks really comfortable, you know, I can see through it, it feels really good. Then I just divert to home, right? So that's how it works. So most of my trips home are actually diversions to my house. And that way I don't ever kind of try to push my luck or, you know, challenge the mountains or any crazy cavalier stuff like that, because I don't want to do that. I'm a big chicken. So anyway, this is kind of how that works with that. Does that kind of make sense? Because Moses Lake, you have Jeff Acreage there. He's a huge seaplane guy. He owns Columbia Pacific Aviation. He can pull you out of the water if you need to. He can bring gas to you. He's always got a smile on his face. He's a really good friend of the seaplane community. And then that's where you can kind of get gas. This is Airman's Beach. So if you do run into bad weather, which I have a couple times, you just turn around, go to Moses Lake and hang out with Jeff, get gas and go get some dinner. And then the next day, turn around. If the weather's better, you're good to go. And that's kind of made the trip a little bit easier. This is a picture of where Airman's Beach is. You can see it's pretty close to the airport. And if you call ahead, he even does it on Sundays. You can have him bring fuel down.
Kevin, is your details on that at our website?
Yeah, with kind of how I started with this, I met Jeff and I created like a guide on how to go to Moses Lake. So we have a PDF somewhere on the website of it. Yeah. And then, you know, the other things are, there's a lot of places in between. If you use Google Maps and you kind of search for restaurants, you know, you've got Blue Lake Resort, Electric City has a little resort you can go to. Rio Vista is really fun. You can go get wine, and there's a whole bunch of places that you can go to, so you don't really have to push your luck through the mountains. You're not stranded out there on the way back. And then if you time it really right, you can actually go to Lake Tapps on the way back, because you Stampede to Tapps, and then you can eat at the golf course, which is another awesome place to go. So I just put that picture. And then Duffel, there's the dock you're talking about, but that's for another presentation. Okay, cool.
All right. Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah, that's all. Me.
We broke the cardinal rule. We went late, 5 minutes late, but you know, if you're like me, you can hear a lot of this good stuff for a long time. So thanks all for coming. We appreciate your support, and fly safe. We still have 17 people online. Thanks, everybody. Let's see.